going? Anthony Fro here, Craig Sci-Fi. Today we're gonna Kitbash again. No! I'm in Kitbash frenzy. I was gonna move on. If you follow my channel, you know I like to do props, costumes, a lot of filmmaking tutorials. And the Kitbashing we just did for a month, right? And that was awesome. But as part of my demos on this channel, I've been making a no-budget sci-fi sort of short series. And the goal with that is literally like no money, like none. So because I do have certain skills available to me because I've been doing this a long time, I'll show you here. So for that, I made this 3D, totally computer-generated spaceship, right? But something wasn't matching up for me. And, you know, it was kind of a blessing, right? Because the whole idea is no money to make a demo of something that you could do yourself. And yeah, I have this ability to build these 3D spaceships and fly them. That's a little more advanced. And then, you know, while I was making the Kitbash series this month, you know, you come across all these great supermarket spaceships, right? Where people take shampoo bottles and deodorant bottles and like little yogurt containers and make these really cool spaceships. And that's in my wheelhouse, right? I did that series where I made with supermarket containers props, science fiction props, right? So I was like, oh, I want to do that. So I'm in Kitbash mode. And I'm like, that's more in line with the no budget series. All right, so now everything makes sense. So one more Kitbash video. So I go to the supermarket and then I know that I made the right choice because wow, I found this weird goofy hair gel bottle that's amazing. And then I saw a lot of people use these probiotic yogurts for really cool rocket engines. It's just like, just perfect, right? This was sort of the miracle, right? Where it's like, okay, this is what I should be doing. So, recap. So to further match a no budget series that we're making, we're gonna Kitbash a spaceship, you know, from the supermarket. So that'll be fun. Then, you know, I'll film this and then I think that'll match better to that no budget series, right? So let's turn these supermarket items into a spaceship, right? I'm excited to do this, all right? Let's just have fun. And away we go. All right, here's basically the materials I'm going to be using. I got my supermarket bottles, and I got some styrene sheets and some of these sticks of styrene, which are pretty cool, and we're going to get right into it. So first thing I do is, as always, just sort of ponder, think, oh God, here we go again, and then I get excited. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the front of this. Now this, you'll notice, was what I ended up with my last spaceship, was this kind of profile. And this happens often, right? So you start to create sort of your own vibe, something that you like, right? So I discovered that at the end of the build with the other ship, and this one I'm starting with that because turns out that's something that I like, right? And I spent, you know, a week getting there, so why not take advantage of that? Don't want to rebuild everything, right? So this is now something that I'm refining, right? So I cut that off, and now I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper and I'm just going to smooth that out, because obviously cutting it by hand, it's not going to be perfect, but it's fairly easy to just sort of true that all up. And always looking, thinking, and then I'm like, okay, a little more sanding, but this is going to work. So now I just cut off this back sort of screw-on part. This is just basic stuff, you know, just want to get rid of anything that's going to sort of get in the way. Just want to clean that up. I got my sanding sticks, proper sanding sticks. These are the nail file ones, the emery boards I just get at the dollar store. You know, just getting in there and getting it nice and clean. So now I go into my bits and bobs, my greebly box, and I have this cone from an engine. And now sort of there's these old English fighter planes that have this sort of cone thing going on in the front. So I'm inspired by that. And again, it's one of those things, like, I'm not doing research on it. It's just I know I've seen that before. So it's, to me, that's even a better indicator that it'll work, because it's a visual cue. It's in my subconscious somewhere. And the fact that I don't know exactly what it is, if you follow me, that means that, yeah, this is something that the brain is thinking is a fighter plane, right? So now I just make this little tab that I'm going to fit into the front just because I want to have a little recess back there, and then I want to put that cone in there. And again, you know, as always, I say this all the time, square peg, round hole. You know, you just got to massage it in there, right? You have to persuade it, a lot of people say. So I have a piece of foam back there because it kept popping through, so I had to put that in there to stop it. And now I'm super gluing that in there. Got my kicker. I talk about the kicker all the time, man. The kicker really is your friend when you're building. Otherwise, you know, you sit there and you think, you lose momentum. The kicker just, bam, seals it instantly and moves on. So now, square peg, round hole, you know, this is pointing down, and we want that thrusting, sort of forceful arrow motion. So I just need to sand this a little bit just so I can get an angle so that it sits in there straight. And now I got that. Glue, kicker, boom. Yeah. And that looks really, you know, sometimes it looks great, you know, but that was like, oh, this looks really good. So now I'm taking these styrene strips, which are just awesome. And I find these thinner ones are nice because you can manipulate them very easily. So now what I'm going to do is just sort of create a border around what we just cut, and that's going to do a few things. It's going to clean it up, and it's also going to give the illusion of something that's machined, right? That's something that's made industrial, right? And it's just little things like this, like the lip, that really take it to that next level other than just like a cut, right? And you see there, it's very subtle, but it helps, right? It's the little things that make a big difference. So now I'm going to cut these two little tabs, and what I want to do is the engines, if I was just to glue them straight onto the bottle, they would sort of flare out and look a little off. So by just inserting these tabs, it's going to allow me to true up these yogurt bottle engines. Spaceship powered by probiotic drink. So now, you know, just cut a slit, little super glue, little kicker, and now this is going to allow me to just really put that in there nice and snug. So now I just want to do just basic measurements. You know, you don't got to get too crazy, but I want to make sure that I'm in the ballpark so that it looks the same on both sides. And so now I'm just measuring out, I think it's about 1 inch wide, and I want them to both look mirrored. So, you know, to take 2 minutes to just mark out some pencil lines, you know, it pays off in the end. So now I'm just cutting the slits and a little bit of glue, a little bit of persuasion. And yeah, now that was a simple solution just so I can get these nice and straight rather than sort of kicked out. And you always got to do the flyby. And again, I joke, the flyby it's fun, you know, it's kind of whimsical, but it actually serves a purpose because you start to see like what shapes read as it goes by. So now this is the cap that was on the hair gel bottle, and if I flip that backwards, you see you get that nice sort of ridge line that kind of makes you think of engine, right? So I cut off the top of one of these bottles so that it matches the other two engines, and then taking advantage of that ridge line from the original cap, and then off camera I put another strip of styrene around the edge of it just to give it a little more visual interest. Kicker, glue, boom. Yeah, and then that is looking good. Now is when I get scared because sometimes it's like, oh wow, this is really working well. I hope it doesn't go wrong. So far so good. So now I have this other styrene that's sort of like a molding, which again, you know, it's just a simple little thing, and it's going to add a lot of interest, and it's going to add a lot of value. So this is giving me just sort of like a racing stripe, a little raised profile, just to sort of get away from just being a bottle, right? It's just a little thing to alter it. I'm trying to be a lot more minimal on this as opposed to the other build where I did like a bucket of Greeblies. So now I'm building a framework. Most of this happened off camera, but the same thing, and I just want to give the impression of this is the windshield of the craft. And then in the front, you know, because I'm cutting this by hand, it was a little janky, so I cut this triangle to mask it, but it also just adds a little detail to the front, just raises it a little, makes it a little more interesting, and it hides the crimes, right? It gets rid of the fact that in the front there, it didn't meet up perfectly. So now I have these thicker strips, and what I want to do is just give like a little bit of a raised look on the side, like some sort of wind stripe or something that helps the craft to go steady or something. But, you know, it's just going to, when we weather it, those lines are really going to pop, and it'll make it, you know, it'll make it look more like something that was built rather than we just painted a bottle. So that looks good, and now I'm drilling the hole. What I did on the last one is after I was all done, I put the hole so that I can mount it when I'm filming it on the green screen, because that's the whole reason we're building this. I learned my lesson from that. Now I do the hole as part of the build, so we can build around it. So now I'm just going through my greebly bin and just looking for just a couple pieces. I just want to add a few things, and I found these, and these are perfect, right? These one, I think they're from some kind of mech model. Just glue one on each side, and just a little, I'm making the finger sign. And then I added, those are tank wheels just in the front of there, just to give that a little something, because it was a big empty space. And now I have these mag wheels, right? Now these look very much like what you would imagine a sci-fi spaceship rocket engine to look like. So again, with this build, this is one of those builds that just keeps working out. This fit perfectly, like as if I measured it and had them custom built. So that was a real win. Off camera, I just sprayed the inside of those black, because even though we're putting the rocket engines on there, we still want that to disappear, so we didn't want it to be white in there. So now I'm just going through and sanding the whole piece. And then what we're going to find out later is that I was kind of treating this like a regular model or prop, but because this base coat is going onto this sort of commercial grade plastic that's meant to hold liquids and stuff, I should have treated it better, because a few pieces are going to flake off once we do the demasking. So some kind of like bulldog or something that, you know, helps paint to stick to plastic. But anyway, not a big deal, you know, but just keep that in mind. So now I have my Aztecing stickers, which I love, and we're going to do the Aztecing, right? I go over this in other videos. Basically what this is, you see this in the Star Trek Enterprise a lot on the dome. It just breaks up the color, right? So we have this light gray base, and now that we have the Aztecing stencils on there, now we're going to go with our lighter color over that. And then when we take off those stickers, we're going to have this really cool, really subtle pattern that's going to make it not look like one solid color. And again, you know, this is a model being made to make a movie, not to go on the shelf. So when it goes by the camera, it's really just going to help make it more interesting and less of just this solid field of color flying by. So now this is one of those tedious jobs that's actually not a big deal. It's like you kind of get into it, you know, you put the headphones on, and you do want to double check because sometimes you can miss them. So I always get up my magnifying glass, and what that does is it just focuses on every single area, and I find that's a good tool to make sure I didn't miss any. So here's where the paint peeled off, like I was saying. So to deal with that, luckily, you know, we do these ships heavily weathered. So what I'm going to do is take some silver paint, and where the paint peeled off, I'm going to treat it as if we did like a paint reveal, sometimes like we do with the toothpaste, where, okay, all this paint just peeled off. So I'm putting silver there, and I'm going to layer many other passes over that, but the silver will be on the base, and that's going to cover up where we had our paint chip off. So now I'm going to take the paint that we just did our final pass on, I'm just going to spray a little in the cap, and I'm going to take our sponge brush, and I'm just going to dab this over where we painted that silver so it blends in. And then also I'm going to go through and just put little dabs over all our Aztecing, right? So that it's not just this harsh, sharp lines of the Aztecing. It's just going to blend this all together, because in a way it is part of the weathering, right? It's like a pixelation. It's like a camouflage. So that looks good. And now I'm going to sand the paint off of the back of the engines, because once we glue those mag wheels on there, if it's just paint to paint, it'll tend to flake off and chip off. So what you want to do is get it back down to plastic where you're gluing, right? So plastic on the engine, plastic on the wheel, and now that's going to be a nice solid bond. And that is really looking good. It's amazing how those just fit perfectly. Really got lucky with that. All right, so now we're going to do the wash, a sludge wash. Like I said, I used to always do acrylic paint and water, but I love this wash that I get at the hobby shop. You know, it's basically like black paint and thinner. And this is called a sludge wash. Like, we're just covering the whole thing. And now we're going to wipe it off with a paper towel. And what I really was counting on with this model, and it worked out, so I'm very happy, is those stripes we put down the side are really paying off now, because those are going to really pop. And what I do is certain areas, I'll pat it down. Along the main body of the ship, you want to go in lengthwise streaks to kind of mimic that it's shooting through the air, and the dirt sort of moves in that direction. And you see now, like, all that starts to pop. And it's really cool. I'm really happy with that. So now I'm going to do my paint chipping pass. So I have these acrylic, they're water-based acrylic, so they're nice. And basically I'm just taking these little sponges that we chew up, and we pick out pieces with the pliers and with the tweezers, just to get a really uneven, and just like a dry brush, just a little dab of paint, get most of it off on the paper towel, and just go through and put these little passes, and it really breaks up the model. It helps to blend everything together. I do the sort of mix of brown. It's burnt umber and black, and then I'll do the black, and then I'll do the lighter one. So now here, right in this moment, I had like a happy accident, right? So I started putting these streaks on there, this sort of really heavy rust, and I really liked the way that looked, right? So now we're going to seal that in with some varnish. Every time you do a weathering pass, you put varnish, because you don't want it all to muddy up. So now these windows, I want them to be black, and I had this idea to use a really heavy gelled nail polish. And for a few reasons. One, because it's going to be really reflective, and also nail polish is meant to go on thick and not run. So to get into this space is a lot easier. And then I'm, drying it with a hair dryer, because I want to do 2 coats. And already I'm thinking, yep, this is the way to go, because I want it to be reflective, right? And it's the gloss, because it's a totally different paint. It just is helping me to sell the fact that these are windows. So now I'm just going to take just a fine regular brush and just get in there in the corners. Now I'm drying this off, and then when you dry it, it starts to settle, and you lose those brush marks. So the hair dryer is always good to have on handy. And see here, this is what I'm talking about. See how the light dances off of that black, but the model doesn't reflect any light, right? I mean, it reflects light, but you don't get the glare. So that, to me, sells it as window. All right, so here's the final weathering pass. I got the powders. First, I'm going to go with like a gray. And the main thing that I want to achieve with these powders is around the window, because we have that stark contrast of the nail polish and then all this weathered paint. I want to, not make that window look like it's brand new. So putting dirt all around the corners of that window frame is really helping to finally blend that in. And then around the edges, I get a little bit of the weathering powder on there, and then it just kind of softens that transition. And then finally I do my blue. I really like this blue. So with the blue, I just do some streaks. I have no idea in my mind like what's the justification for them, but I just like how it breaks it up, and that looks really good. Very happy with that. So what do we got to do? Just do one final pass where you're final answer, no, just let me get this. At a certain point, you just throw up your hands and go, all right, that's it, that's done. Look it over, make sure I didn't miss any major parts. It's all looking pretty good. We're gonna call it. I'm gonna seal this up with the varnish, the matte clear, and here's the beauty shots. Really happy with this. I don't think if you were just seeing this cold that you would associate that this is from a bottle of hair gel. And that's really the beautiful thing about this process. And we were able to take what we learned from doing that big proper kitbash and then apply it to our sort of affordable option, but raise the level of that. Looks really cool. Yeah, I was so ready to move on to another project, but I had to do this. When I was going down the rabbit hole of kit bashing, you know, I was referring to a lot of videos, and I came across Badger Works, and he did a shampoo bottle. So I'll link to that below. Definitely that inspired me. And then what's just so much fun to me about researching this kind of stuff, especially on YouTube, and then to find out the Badger Works shampoo bottle one was inspired by this artist. I think it's Eric Goose. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but he has this page which I'll link to. He just did all these amazing drawings where, you know, like can openers, and then he turns it into like a spaceship, and then the shampoo bottle. And so I was really inspired by that. So, you know, just to kind of give credit where credit's due, that's, you know, what inspired me, and then hopefully I'll inspire you, and then you can see what I looked at, and etc., etc. Wow. All right, so the reason also I was excited to do this, I have that no budget series that I've been working on, Zenith Run, and I did a digital spaceship for that, 3D, but because I'm going more like grindhouse style with that, and I'll get into that more in future tutorials, I wanted to do a practical spaceship for that, right? So it made more sense. So in the next video, we're gonna film this. Put that on there. Whoa. And then I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna include that into that ongoing project. As always, I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love to read the comments. Be sure to check out the merch shop. Today I'm wearing Punish Props Academy. Bill Durant over there. This is a great channel. So I'm practicing what I preach, right? So this is a great maker who shares a lot of great stuff. So to support him, I purchased one of his t-shirts. Check out the Create Sci-Fi hats and t-shirts in the shop. And, you know, if you purchase one of those, it really helps the channel. Well, just remember, as always, I'm just here to help make sci-fi.